It has to be for everybody. You know, and now they got this problem. But what a nice problem. If you were mayor of the city, what a nice problem to have. Traffic jams of cyclists. You know, and this is what we need also. We need grids. Because the other day I was at a city in Canada, and someone said, oh, you know, a mayor said, well, she told me, oh, in this city, we're not a bicycle culture, because we did a bikeway and no one is using it. And I said, okay, how long is the bikeway? And she said, oh, we did 1 mile and no one is using it, so we stopped. Well, it doesn't connect anything with anything. If you don't connect places of origin with places of destination, because, you know, the 8-year-old or anybody, you know, it's not, if you're not at ease riding on the road with the cars, and 70% of it, you prove 70%, but the other 30% is in the middle of the cars, you are not going to use it. That's why it's very important to build the grid. And then in between, in the neighborhood, you lower the speed to 20 is plenty. But then you got to get into a grid when you are interconnected to go from anywhere to anywhere. You know, and in Copenhagen, 4 out of 10 people use their bike as their mode of transportation. 4 out of 10. And they got a higher per capita income than any city in North America, and a high level of education. Cycling is not for the low income. Cycling, you know, like yesterday they were telling me in Dalton, Georgia, they said, you know, it's only the low income immigrants that work in the factory, the carpet factory, that are cycling. That's terrible, you know. In December I was having lunch with an MP, so it's like a senator at the federal government in Denver. And she came on her bike, and I was at the hotel, she picked me up, and I went on my bike, and we went out to lunch. So the MPs, they ride their bike. The millionaires ride their bikes. Everybody, the high income, the low income, the young, the old, and then that's how they go to the theaters and they go to the movies, and even the women, they text their boyfriends. Right? And you know, it's something that everybody does. This is any street corner in any morning there. And when it snows, 70% of the people that bike in the summer, they bike in the snow. But something that is interesting, they plow. First, who's the most vulnerable in mobility? The pedestrian. And then the cyclist, and then the transit user, and then the cars. So that has to be the priority. First plow that, and then they continue using it. Even this little boy that is very cold. And the people that are worried about fashion, the people that don't want to use spandex and cleats, do not worry, because when you buy, you use just your regular clothing. So, and the young people, you know, at the university here, tell them, when you go party, it's easy when you go to the bars and disco, on a bike, and then they come out at 3 o'clock in the morning a little bit tipsy, but it's safer when they're tipsy on a bike than when they're tipsy on driving a car. And then they get directions on how to get home, and the next day they get up and they go to work and everything is fine. So, and now in Copenhagen you see this all over the city, which basically says that by 2015 they want to go to 5 out of 10. So 40% is not enough for them, they want to go to 50% of the trips, which is very interesting, you know. And now in Toronto we elected a mayor, unfortunately, who says traffic is terrible because of the cyclists. So actually that reminded me of something that when I was in December and I did this video just with my camera just playing around. And then I saw, look at all of those cars. So then I started thinking when I saw this, I said, you know, is the traffic terrible because of the bicycles, or is it terrible because there are not enough bicycles? So maybe it's the other way around, you know. So it's not just the big city. Look at some of these examples. For example, look at this one. This city is really interesting because in this city, they had a river going through the middle. And 30 years ago, some transportation engineers said, oh, why don't we change? Why don't we pay, we want a vibrant city, let's put a road on top of this river. Also because the fish, they don't talk, so no one is going to complain. So they built this road, and they thought it was very vibrant and exciting. And about 8 years ago, someone said, hey, wasn't there a river going down here underneath? And they brought it out, and what do you think created more vibrancy, that road or this one? So this is the kind of things. And one of the things I love about San Antonio is your riverboat. It's world famous. Everybody talks about San Antonio's riverboat. And these are the kind of things, you know. In Odessa has 190,000 people. And look what they do. In the public street, in the pedestrian street, you either gotta walk your bike or you leave it out. And look at this, is very interesting, because if you want to catch the green wave, The traffic lights are at the speed of the bicycle, not at the speed of the cars. So when you are going there, it's very interesting, and then you're going on your bike, and it tells you how fast you're going. And by the way, always. I mean, painted lines, they don't work anywhere, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But in any case, painted lines, sometimes we put painted lines in North America, where we put the sidewalk, then the parked cars, and then the painted lines. So in North America, we have the cyclists are protecting the parked cars, instead of the parked cars protecting the cyclists. You feel so much more at ease when next to you are the pedestrians, and next the parked cars. So, but in any case, this tells you how fast you are going. So if this green wave, let's say, was at 20, like this one, it says 22 kilometers an hour, then if you want to catch all the green lights, you speed up. And then I was talking to the commissioner of transportation, and I said, you know, what does it matter? You know, if you're going to take 23 minutes to go to work, and now you're going to take 3 minutes more, 3 minutes less, who cares? And he said, oh, Gil, you didn't get it. This is not about the 3 minutes. This is about sending a message that in this place, a person on a $40 bike is as important or more than a person on a $40,000 car. It's a very clear message. So I thought it was very interesting because, you know, the quality of our pedestrian and our cycling infrastructure is a symbol of the respect that we have for people. So it's not just something isolated, you know. And by the way, you know, one of the things that I love here in San Antonio, and I just had dinner with a group of people from public health and the environment, is this mix that you are getting, because, you know, we're going to be successful if we build a broad alliance, and we got to get everybody on board. And when we are talking about obesity crisis and all of this, we need to be people physically active. And so people will say, oh, people don't change. No, yes, they do change. Look, here in Denmark, in 1993, the level of physical activity, the people who are being physically active, was the same as San Antonio, between 40 and 50%. But now it's above 70% across all ages. Can you imagine if all of a sudden San Antonio said, we're going to be the healthiest city in the US? And then you get everybody involved. Every single elementary school, every high school, the business, the community, the environmental groups, the health group, the sports, everybody moving in that direction. You know, I have no doubt that with attitude it could be that, but we got to be bold and ambitious. You know? And by the way, some people say Copenhagen has been changing for the last 40 years, so we also have 40 years. Oh, you know, unfortunately, we do not. We don't have 40 years. On the one hand, we're going to develop a sense of urgency. I know we're doing things in many places in North America, but at the speed of the turtle. And then we're very smart, so we find someone that is a slower turtle than us. And then we say, oh, you know, I might be slow, but I'm ahead of you. No, we gotta push much faster. You know, the U.S. population is growing. The U.S. is going to have 100 million more people in the next 30 years. 100, and this is by the U.S. Census. And then, and not only is going to grow a lot, but like the plus 65. You know, the plus 65 is going to increase by 57% in the next 15 years, and it's going to more than double by 2050. More than double. And this isn't rocket science, because the people that are going to be plus 65 already have 45 and 55, so it's just projecting that population. And are our cities really friendly for the people that are going to be 70, 80 on a walker? You know, those are the kind of things. So not only do we have to improve the city that we got today, but we got to create great cities for 100 million additional people. So that's part of the challenge. So how do we want to live? That is the question that we're going to have tonight. We got to think, how do we want to live? You know, it's not just telling people don't waste a liter of gas to get a liter of milk. If the closest place to get a liter of milk is 3 miles away, people are not going to walk 3 miles just to get a liter of milk. So, you know, what kind of cities are we building? Do we have parks within walking distance? We have many, many studies that show that if you have a park close to your home, it will be more likely that you are going to be physically active than if you don't. You know, and for example, I was in November working with the mayor of Dublin in Ireland, and the mayor was so proud that he said, you know, in the middle of the crisis, but nevertheless, we have a park within less than a quarter of a mile to 97% of the homes. So in Dublin, you walk 200 yards in any direction, and you find a park. I went to school in Los Angeles. I have an MBA from UCLA, and Los Angeles has a lot of parkland, but all of it is in one side of the city. 2 out of 3 children do not have a park within walking distance. And it's not a coincidence that in that area is also where you have a lot of the social riots, a lot of the unrest, a lot of the lower income. So we gotta say, how are we building the cities? What kind of cities are we building? You know, schools. We are amalgamating schools all over the place because the Board of Education says, you know, if we amalgamate schools or we make bigger schools, instead of having 2 principals, we get 1. Instead of having 2 custodians, we have 1. Yeah, but if we have bigger schools, also the catchment area is bigger. And if we get a catchment area that is bigger, then also more kids are going to have to be driven to school. When they have friends, their friends are going to live further apart, so they cannot walk or bike to their friend's house. They're going to also have to be driven. So we really kind of think, how do we want to live? You know, the reality is that when we define the cities around cars. By the way, we have been building cities for around 5,000 years. And it's been only in the last 40 or 50 or 60 that we've been pretty much thinking more on cars, mobility, than on people happiness. And by the way, there is no city the size of San Antonio in the world that has solved the issue of mobility based on the private car. None. If that was an option, there would be hundreds of examples. No, they have solved with public transit, with cycling, with walking. Because when we define the cities around cars, the only thing we get is more cars. And then we gotta go out and call our friends to help us cross the street. And this isn't far from reality. The streets are getting wider, the cars are going faster, we're living longer, so we're getting older. But when we define the cities around people, then we get healthier and we get happier people. And that's the idea, how to get healthier and happier people. And also, how to get better quality of life, and how to get healthier communities. And people say, Gil, please don't talk about quality of life. We're going through an economic crisis. No, precisely, because we're going through an economic crisis. The reality is that we live in an ever more globalized world. And when we live in an ever more globalized world, the best people, they can live anywhere they want. The best engineers, the best carpenters, the best musicians, the best of anything, they can live anywhere. I'm not talking about quantity. I'm talking about quality. I mean, the US is going to grow by 100 million. No matter what. So I'm not talking about quantity, it's quality. So every morning in San Antonio, you have to wake up and say, is today our city a little bit better than what it was yesterday? Are we getting better? Because San Antonio has to attract and to retain the best people. The best people out of the high schools, the best people out of the universities should want to stay here. The people that come to San Antonio should be the best. Also because after the best companies are going to go where the best people are. Because you know, what really created wealth and power in the 19th century was land. So you could take over the next door neighbor and you would become powerful. But what created wealth and power in the 20th century was capital. So people would subsidize companies. But what is creating wealth and power in the 21st century is knowledge. And the main difference is that the knowledge moves around. So the reality is that we gotta work on quality of life. Like the river walk that you're doing, fantastic. But multiplying that many, many times. Because you know, quality of life is the most important tool of economic competitiveness. So if San Antonio is going to be competitive in the international scene, it has to have good quality of life in order to attract the best people. And good community is not just a matter of engineering, but it has much more to do about people, like Robert was saying at the beginning. And that's one of the goals that Bike Texas is doing, is how to have people, happier people. So, and they asked me, and actually over dinner, someone said, why are you calling any cities? What is the name of it? Yeah, we see here that it's about walking and cycling and public places for all. Yeah, but those are the means. The end is how to develop vibrant cities and healthy communities with happy people enjoying public places. And yeah, we do things, some of the services, how to recreate public places. You know, we build gymnasiums in the schools, and then we go at night and they are empty, they are closed. Not because the Board of Education doesn't want to, not because of the principal doesn't want to, because the custodian doesn't want to allow anybody. It doesn't make any sense from the point of view of sustainability that we build a $20 million facility and we have it closed at night, on Saturdays, on Sundays, because the custodian doesn't want to open it. Or vice versa, the municipalities build also community centers next to a school and it's empty at 10 o'clock in the morning because they don't want the school to use it. My God, this is one taxpayer. The people that build the schools and the community centers and the parks and everything, whether it's the Board of Education or the municipality or the state or the federal, it's one taxpayer. We gotta be much better at using our facilities.